everybody wants to cut their trial plots on the same day, and there's 3 combines, get those and get the commercial crop cut around the field in the meantime. So it's a bit laborious sometimes that you have to cut out 3 run headland around a field and then go off to another field and do the same and get another combine working there. So it's that, but you wouldn't necessarily use 2 different combines at the same trial. So you'd have 2 combines going at different fields. So
there's a lot of taking on and off the header and all that kind of stuff.
Extra trailers when it looks we've a bit of an overkill. We might have 5 trailers here for the amount of ground we have, but we'd have 1 stuck with each combine for the day, so it's not.
No matter where you are in the country this year, the harvest is proving difficult due to the showery or just really wet weather. Grain moistures have been reasonable, but there's quite a bit of straw still on the ground. You're listening to the latest episode of the Tillage Edge with me, Michael Hennessy. We would really appreciate it if you could listen, follow, and give us a review on Apple or Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. Research farms live with the same conditions as every other farmer, but with the added complications of harvesting small plots, both in research farms and across the country with very small combines. I'm delighted today to be joined by Brendan Burke, the farm manager in Teagasc Oak Park Research Farm, who is also the main organiser of the harvest both in Oak Park and across the country. Brendan, I've seen combines going out of the yard here in all directions over the last few days. Are you harvesting outside Oak Park at the moment?
A little bit of both. We have up to date in Oak Park, we have all our winter barley and winter oats completed. Now we have off-sites, we call them, which are mostly plots. And today, actually, they're in Cork doing winter oats, and it's a small for the growth guide that's done in Cork. And this similar plots were done last week in Drogheda, outside Drogheda. So, and if we same ones here, so it does the same combine has to go to the 3 places and take yield samples from that. So, a bit of trucking around with that. That's on oats, and then winter barley. We've had some in Kildalton, and we then back here then for our own winter barley as well. So we move around quite a bit now. We're a bit of a stall at the moment because we're waiting on spring barley, waiting on winter wheat, but we're happy enough with that.
Okay, but you're in about 6 or 7 or maybe 10 different places around the country.
Oh yeah,
including here in Oak Park.
There's I think there's three in South. We call it 1 in Wexford, 1 in Wicklow, and 2 in Meath, North Dublin.
Okay, so there's an awful lot of moving and
different
crops in different places as you go. So it's not just, I suppose, what I'm getting at is not just managing here in Oak Park and this research farm. It's a bigger thing altogether.
It's the logistics of getting those combines. Now we have 3 what we call plot combines that are active all days really. When once we can harvest, they're out and about. So the truck with 1 truck, and he happily drives some of the combines sometimes, or he drops a combine somewhere and comes back and drops another combine. So that's a lot of logistics in that. But the guys that are in charge of those trials, say the plant pathology crew, as we call them, they will know when they're ripe, so that I don't have to worry about going down looking at the crop or anything like that. They'll know that, and they'll say, hope to cut next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever. Okay. And then that's the logistics of that really to get that.
Right, you get involved in that stage. So coming back to the harvest here around Oak Park here in the Oak Park near just outside Carlow. Winter barley's all finished. How did that turn out?
Winter, it was okay, actually pleasant enough. Now we would have taken the little risk last back end that we sowed it when a lot of other farmers mightn't have sowed it because we did have to sow it, but I wasn't going to lose my shirt on it, I suppose, if it didn't work. But we did sow it, and actually we had better weather afterwards, which a lot of growers would have realised when we sowed in late October. We had reasonable weather, not good weather, but it didn't get any wetter, I suppose. Sure. So it survived the winter pretty good, and a reasonable crop. Now, it wouldn't be a big bumper crop. Never really have big bumper yields here in Oak Park. It's a light sandy soil. It's not all about moisture, but just the quality of the soil. But we would probably average about 3.5 tonne the acre on most of it.
And what rotational position are most of those winter barleys in?
Winter barley would be a kind of third, really. We say wheat. It can be wheat, winter barley, spring barley, and then maybe a break crop, beans or oilseed rape, and then back into wheat again. So it would rotate around that way. Now we've
just generally a second cereal.
Second cereal,
generally speaking. Okay, so you wouldn't be expecting the highest yield necessarily off a second cereal. Never mind the kind of the having on a relatively sandy site and that kind of stuff.
And I can't afford to really push it that you maybe up the nitrogen to the max. It would be close enough to it, but we don't really want to lodge the crop all around a trial site, because you'll destroy somebody's trial. So you're not going to go all out. Now the trial will get all it needs, but not particularly the areas I will be handling all around this trial site. So that's a little bit of but we're happy enough that it's cut clean anyway.
So what about the straw volumes coming off the winter barley?
Well, it's good enough now. It seemed to average about 8 bales, 8 rounds, 4x4s per acre. seemed to be what are you getting, which is a lot better than last year because we was on the ground for a fortnight last year.
Sure.
Yeah.
And is it all generally baled up at the
All
moment?
baled up, yeah, and all
Okay,
gone off
right.
the field, and it was nice to see people taking it pretty quick.
Okay. And then you mentioned winter oats, they're completed as well here?
Winter oats complete as well. We have a small little bit that we sowed in November, which is about 4 or 5 hectares, which is not just ripe yet. So that will be the next crop, I'd say.
Okay. And from the point of view of straw coming out of that, how did that work out?
We took the option which we had applied for the Straw Incorporation, and we didn't change. And basically because it is much more efficient to get through the crop. Now there's a little bit extra grunt on the combine, but I didn't have any farmers, and we would have plenty of local farmers looking for bits of straw, but they didn't burn my ear off looking for oaten straw. They would ask about straw, barley straw. Have you any straw? Yeah, we've a certain amount of barley straw. I have oats available. Prefer barley. So
Okay.
that was
So
basically it.
if there's no demand, you
Yeah.
chopped it and it's
Yeah.
good enough to chop
Yeah,
anyway.
and it's keeping with a good, because I'd say we've lighter, sandier soils here, which is, I think, getting back in the chopped straw into it definitely is we've been on it for the last 4 or 5 years now. So
Okay. And you mentioned there that straw is kind of moved and people kind of moved it relatively quickly. Does Oak Park have a number of regular customers that come in every year?
yes, there would be regular, and this is probably one of the years where they've texted me or phoned me a month ago and say, keep me my 100 bales, 150 bales, whatever it is, and happy enough. No prices decided or anything like that, just keep it, and no prices asked either.
Okay. And from that point of view, were they asking for more, or have you set aside more of that? I know we had a lot of controversy, obviously, with the Straw Incorporation Scheme and the bail and all that kind of stuff. Have you put more aside, or are you just going to continue to?
No, continue. And I basically said to him, I won't really know till it goes through the combine. It looks an okay crop of spring barley, but I can't promise them that we're going to get either 5 bales or 8 bales to the acre, and that's where the difference will be. But if they're happy enough to get, and most of them will be flexible enough, there would be smaller quantities to be talking about 150 bales, so they're happy if they get 120, but
Sure.
they don't want any more than 150 either.
Okay.
So that seems the way it works with them.
But of course, here in Oak Park, there's lots of small trials in the middle of a big field. So you're not kind of talking about the same volume of straw.
No,
There's
not at all,
bit more blank spots.
There's blank spots, and we end up having to gather that maybe with a rake afterwards, which and sometimes we'll bale it out of small rows because there's only 2.4 or 2.5 meter header on the combine, so it's a bit of a pain gathering it, but we prefer to gather it straight out of the rows than raking it too much because you're collecting clay and stones and everything. So the farmers are happy enough with that, but you will have lower yields because you've probably it's a 2.5 meter section and there's only 2 meters of crop in it. So it's
okay. So go back again a little bit. So in the replicated trials that we do, so say you have a replicated trial and there's six or nine treatments in it.
Yeah.
Each width of that is 2.5 meters sown, is it?
It's on a 2.5 meter center, but there's only 2.1 meters of crop. So we have a gap between them for obviously that we can work spray or fertilizer, whatever we're doing down between it. Sure. So, and they're 12 meters by 2.1 meters long. So that's our effective plot. And we're going across it. So.
Okay, now so that leaves your straw volume then kind of
it's a lot less, yeah.
Okay, and in terms of such your wheat and your on your oats, or sorry, your barley and your oats, you've wheat, a good bit of wheat around here.
Good bit of wheat. Well, that generally goes for composting, or there's quite a bit of veg in the area, and there's one grower likes it for covering his winter carrots, and that's he could take maybe 150 or 200 big square bales. So that's some of that goes to that. So it's ploughed back into somebody else's field down the road.
Very good. And in terms of the harvest of any of the wheat around here, how far away is it, do you think?
I'd say I was looking at it there this morning, and it's not really ripe, but if it had 2 or 3 dry days or not getting wet again, we'll say not getting, it probably would come in, I'd say, by the weekend, but it's not effectively, it's just standing up fairly straight still. So it's not just there yet. So if you were pushing it, you probably could cut even spring barley and some of the wheat, but you'll be lots of bits of greenery in it, I'd say.
Okay, even the spring barley, some parts of it.
Yeah, and it's just on varieties. And I was in one of the fields this morning, we saw 2 different varieties in it, and one is not really ripe and the other is, so the same day.
But but this was sown probably a bit earlier than most people.
It would, yeah. We would have got in these 2 blocks now on about the 10th of March, so it was actually good enough. But it still just will take another day or two, I'd say, to get it right. Okay. But if you had plus 20 degrees Celsius, it probably would dry it enough that you would harvest it, but it's just a little bit tacky at the moment.
And did you have any of the later sown crops, wheats or barleys that were sown in kind of towards the end of April, or how are they looking?
Yeah, they're filled out nicely, and there's a good crop. You're not looking at any bare patches in the ground anyway, and they've tilled out reasonably well. So again, you're just looking across them really. There probably will be 2 weeks as a minimum. I'd say
Okay.
3 weeks. I'd say again, some of them are right, but I suppose again, you get through everything, you probably won't notice it that if you've a week cutting other stuff and wheat, you will get your way around the farm and they'll be ready then. It's not a.
So in terms of the overall harvest bit then, what's the big pinch points that you find every year trying to get over all of the ground?
Yeah, well, that's it. Everybody wants to cut their trial plots on the same day, and if 3 combines, get those and get the commercial crop cut around the field in the meantime. So it's a bit laborious sometimes that you have to cut out a three run headland around a field and then go off to another field and do the same and get another combine working there. So it's that, because you wouldn't necessarily use 2 different combines at the same trial. So you'd have 2 combines going at different fields. So
there's a lot of taking on and off the header and all that kind of stuff.
Extra trailers when it looks we've a bit of an overkill. We might have 5 trailers here for the amount of ground we have, but we'd have one stuck with each combine for the day, so it's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So you have a bit of ground out there in terms of winter barley, straw is moved, and some of it that I see out there. Are you thinking about double cultivation at the moment? You probably have to, I suppose, a bit of
yeah,
to be done within 10 to 14 days.
Yeah, well, all the own straw has been disked back in, so that's happy enough for that, and the ground is quite favourable for that. There's always a little plus somewhere with weather like that, so it's mulching in quite well. And then I'm not sure it's a brilliant need to do thing, but tram lines were quite deep this year over winter, and we would have our tram lines every 12 meters. We're on 24 meter system, but we've 12-meter tram lines for our trial plots, and they're quite rough and bumpy. So we ripped up some of those, and now tomorrow we're hoping to sow cover crops in any of those winter barley fields that are going back to spring barley or spring beans or some of those. We're putting in a cover crop in those.
So go back to the tram lines. You said you ripped them. What's you ripped them with?
Well, it's just a harsh Toronto. It's just they're reasonable deep legs on it.
It's a solid leg.
Solid leg on it. Yeah. Well, no, it's spring loaded. It's not going terribly deep. No, we're just going to kind of level them out a little bit. We're not going down into the tram line. We're not going down. Probably only going down about 15 centimeters, I suppose. Okay. Just to because literally when you're driving across them, you'd break any tractor or any man.
Sure.
So it's more to level them out rather than, but we're not trying to, because we're on as best we can control traffic. So I think if you try and go down into those and break them out of it, you're just going to make it softer for next year.
Sure.
So it's just to level, and that makes the driving across with the next set of cultivation make it a little bit easier.
Because either way, the ground's going to be plywood anyway, so
you
probably take a bit of it out of the one way.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and you mentioned you disc some of the open ground. How or what depth did you disc that to?
Basically, only about maybe 7 to 4, 7 to 10 centimeters, probably
3 to 4 inches.
Yeah, 3 to 4 inches.
Right.
Yeah, not any more than that. So if the field is level enough, it'll cover it in nicely. Okay. And you want your straws mixed with it reasonably well, because you could turn over an awful lot of clay. But if we're trying to go back in there with winter wheat after the oats, you could have a mushy top 3 or 4 inches, which you don't want. So it's just to get enough that it's mulched into it.
Okay, and then because we've every farmer, including the Oak Park farm, has to comply with all of the various compliance rules out there, and one of those is that you must you must cultivate shortly after harvest, but then on the other side of it, for the cereal ground, you must leave a certain proportion of that uncultivated for the birds. What's your thinking about that, or where are you going to place that?
Well, that's it. It'll probably after maybe something that's obviously going at spring barley or spring beans. So we leave those uncultivated, but I'm trying to pick areas which are adjacent to other natural habitats. Like we have a lake here, and we have actually a bit of forestry, a bit of that there might be, if there's, while that you're doing something that's not a blank spot in the middle of the farm, that there's not much happening. There's something happening in every field, but I'm just thinking that it might be better off putting our uncultivated stubbles at those edge plots or edge fields rather than putting them out in the middle where you mightn't have it effective. So pheasants or whatever will be running in out of the forestry, so they will be on the stubbles rather than they mightn't like tall cover crops, to work with.
And when you're talking about birds, Brendan, one thing that always strikes me when I go down to the middle of Oak Park is people would know and recognize the really windy bit, if you like, where there's really no hedges in it. You'd always be struck, to me at least, saying by the skylarks up there. There was a bit of a survey done here on that not too long ago.
Yes, there was a gentleman, a farmer and member of Birdwatch Ireland. I can't remember his name, from Cork, but he came up and actually spent a lovely day here going around and watching skylarks, and quite a few of them. And he said it's a little bit unusual that they're in very open plain, like there's probably 150, 200 acres there without much hedgerows in it. So he was getting more numbers there of skylarks than would be traditionally recognised as a place for their habitat. But he says they're really in that area, which would be similar in continental Europe, where it wouldn't be recognised in Ireland as where a habitat for skylarks. But the area says because he noticed them on our open day last year when he was here. And he came back to the same field and he says, yeah, they're all there. Not sure numbers he got now. I left them at it for today.
Yeah, I think from memory, I think it's some of the highest density of skylarks they've ever counted in Ireland, just from memory. So it's phenomenally good. So there you go. I mean, you kind of do need tillage in the landscape for this kind of biodiversity out there. A final one I just wanted to ask you, Brendan, about is you mentioned cover crops in passing there. Do you intend to plant cover crops in?
Yes, but we're a bit caught in that we don't want to. We didn't have any oilseed rape last year, so we don't want to because we're having little issues with club root appearing. So we're kind of taking it away from that and don't want to put any brassicas cover crops in. So we have phacelia and vetch going in now in any areas that are suitable for it. So it'll be probably about 20-30% of our overwintered ground will be in cover crops, and about 20-25% will be in stubble.
And what's your method of sowing that? Is it fertilizer sprinter?
No, we have an air seed, a small air seeder on disc, 4-meter disc.
So it's on the back. It runs through. So it's on the back.
And a little splash plates on the back of it, and we're literally at it this evening, and we'll disc that, and so it only discs down to about 2-3 inches, enough softened a little bit in the top, and we roll it directly after then.
Okay, and how do you find that? Does that generally work?
Yeah, it worked very well for us there last year. We had a good establishment last year with it, and it's reasonably quick as well, but you need a little bit of tilt to get it to...
A bit of moisture, obviously, as well.
Yeah, and we had it now 2 years ago when the ground was very hard and solid, so, I'd say it was a waste of time that year. It just weren't getting enough soil, and even, you don't want to be trying to bury a disc into hard ground either,
Yeah. Okay. Listen, Brendan, thanks very much for coming in and joining me and give us an update on the Oak Park harvest. I might come back to you maybe towards the end of the harvest again.
Sure.
And look, best of luck with the rest of it, because there's still a long ways to go.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael.
So that's it for this week, and my thanks to Brendan for joining me on the show. So if you enjoyed the podcast, then recommend it to a friend or colleague. And as always, rate, review, and follow on Apple or Spotify so you never miss an episode. And for more information, go to teagasc.ie. I'm Michael Hennessy, thanks for listening, and I'll be back next week with more tillage news and advice.